And we're live. How are we, everyone? Just waiting while you all get yourself settled in. We are presenting tonight IoT, AI in the health tech and medtech space. So really, really excited about this. We're going to have all of these comments coming through. If you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. So make sure you let us know if you've got some questions down below. So this evening, we'll be talking all about biohacking, robotic surgery, AI for future health predictions, and predicting outcomes. So we're just going to get everyone signed in. It's 5:30, so we'll probably kick off in about 2 to 3 minutes. I'm going to do the introduction to our speakers. So we're very excited to have SAP, Microsoft, Semantics, Arden Street Labs, and also Intelicare here today to talk about some of the really cool IoT projects that they've been running. So drop your comments down below. We'll be running competitions. So up for grabs are the MX Microsoft IoT dev kits. We've also got career coaching packages, resume writing packages. So make sure that you get yourself registered on the Eventbrite page. So once again, comment below questions. We'll have Q&A at the end. This session tonight is going to run until 6:45 approximately. So get yourselves ready and set up. So this evening, I'm going to do a brief introduction to all of our speakers. I have them all here. So I'm going to now get them on screen and we're going to get started with the talking. Is it happening? So we've got here Simon from SAP. He will be joining us talking about his digital healthcare initiatives and IoT and AI. Hi, Simon. How are you? Awesome. I'll bring on, we also have Mike McGrath. He is from Semantics. He'll be talking this evening as well about some really interesting IoT projects that are in his space.
Thank you very much.
How are you, Mike?
I'm well, thank you. Looking forward to the sessions.
That's all right. Awesome. We also have Jason Waller from Intelicare. So welcome. How are you, buddy? I think you're on mute. How are you? Awesome. We've got Tim from Microsoft.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for joining us. And we have also Jeff as well from Arden Street Labs. So
how's it going, Jess? Thanks for hosting this.
Good to have you. All right. So I guess this evening we will be covering quite a lot of interesting topics. If you do need to get the screen recording or follow-up messages around this event, please make sure that you get onto our website or go to Eventbrite. Make sure you're registered because that way you'll go into the draw for the competition. You will also get updates and everything like that regarding the event, and you'll get sent the recording and also some of the presentations that we've seen here tonight. Okay. Hey, Dan, how's it going? Hi, Ida, Reza, Vamsi, Lejo, Naveen, good to see you all. So we've got people joining through, so that's exciting. Once again, drop your questions down below. We will get started. I'm just going to do a quick brief around what we're talking about this evening. So I'm going to quickly share my screen. So obviously, IoT and AI in healthcare is vital. This is a really, really important space. It is one of those spaces that has a direct influence on lives. So what a crazy way to use technology, right? To increase the longevity of people's lives, predict health outcomes, help people live at home more safely. This is the sort of reason why I love tech. We'll be talking about lab-grown organs. Okay, so really interesting stuff happening in AI as well. So I'll share my screen so you all can see my presentation this evening. So this evening we'll be talking, like I mentioned, about this. I'll just do a quick intro. Okie doke. So hopefully you can all see my screen. All right, so this evening we'll be talking about, obviously, IoT, artificial intelligence in healthcare and aged care. Our sponsor for this evening's event is Microsoft, and we've got SAP, Intelecare, Semantics, and Arden Street Labs involved in this evening's event. So very happy to have them all on board. This evening, we have some of our speakers. We've got Tim Simmons from Microsoft. He is the Technology Solutions Professional in the IoT division over at Microsoft. We have myself running the Reesby IoT. We're a recruitment and technology company. We also have Simon Grace from SAP, Industry Business Architect in Healthcare, Digital AI and IoT. We have Jason Waller from Intelicare. He's the CEO and Managing Director, running some very big projects over there. We've also got Michael McGrath from Semantics. He's a CTO and Digital Product Manager, focused on AI and IoT projects once again to help people live from home more efficiently in their later years. We also have Jeff Feldman from Arden Street Labs, a really interesting project that they've got happening over at Austin Health at the moment in a live hospital. So this evening we will have, the format will be as follows. So from 5:30 to 6:45, and you can speakers. So take a screenshot of this and make sure you're tuned in at the time for who you want to hear. I'd suggest stick around anyway. Here are some of the things that we think are some upcoming trends in this space. So obviously biohacking, lab-grown organs, robotic surgery, autonomous clinics, reinforcement learning, and smart homes, so helping people live at home, and AI health predictions. So in terms of AI, we can use AI to help diagnose illnesses. We can use AI to predict health outcomes, to help with creating and developing, curating healthcare treatment plans, and also developing drugs and pharmaceuticals. These are just some of the ways that AI is being used at the moment in this industry. AI is one of the most, that's the highest growth industry apparently at the moment. It's worth about 600 million in 2014 and is projected to reach 150 billion by 2026. In 2015, misdiagnosing illness and medical error accounted for 10% of all the deaths in the US. So we do have a bunch of people from the US tuned in tonight. So drop down where you're located across the world. We would love to hear from you. Here are a couple of companies that are showcasing. Here are a few organizations that are, and startups that are doing really cool things in this space. So make sure you go ahead, check them out. In Israel and all across the globe. So hopefully you can screenshot that. This is once again just another example of technology and how it's kind of being used in this space. IoT in healthcare. So we'll be talking about IoT in healthcare, how you can use it for physicians to keep track of their patients. You can use it to possibly detect your blood sugar levels, heart rate, body temperature, things like that, and any deviation from your standard everyday behaviours when it comes to at home. We'll also be talking about the cost reduction. So this obviously has a direct influence on costs in these organisations. Here are some Jess predictions. So hopefully you all can hear me. Drop a comment if you can, because I want to make sure you can hear me. Can you hear me, everyone? Sorry if there's any background noise. We're trying to manage that at the moment. So some Jess predictions, AI and IoT. I reckon we're going to be using AI and IoT there to plug into your body, detect what's going on with your health in real time, maybe providing the nutrients that you actually are needing. I reckon we're going to have biogenetic manipulation. I think that, you know, in utero, we're probably going to see these devices having an influence on your health. We're also possibly going to be using AI to determine health from birth, using IoT for fully autonomous hospitals and robotic surgeries. These are some of the predictions that I see being in the future. So what I will do is now introduce our very first speaker. We'll go back here. And this evening, we will be kicking off this evening with Jason. So just bear with me while I bring that back up. And we have Jason from Intelecare. How are you, buddy? Can you, your microphone is on mute. How are you, buddy? Can you hear me? We're having a bit of technical difficulty, of course. Sorry, Jeff Feldman. My apologies. My apologies. Oh, we're always going to have these things. Jeff, how are you? Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me okay?
Because I can't hear you. Awesome. Jeff is from Arden Street Labs. Tell us a little bit more about what you do over there at Arden Street Labs.
Yeah, so Arden Street Labs is a small company based here in Melbourne, and we're strictly focused on the delivery of advanced Azure native solutions for customers across retail, logistics, and healthcare, with a special focus on IoT, computer vision, and of course, big data.
Awesome. Amazing. I hear you're doing a lot of interesting things. So you've got the stage, buddy. Take it away. I'm going to put you to full screen, and feel free to share your screen in your presentation. I'm going to sit back and take notes.
Fantastic. Sounds
Good
great.
to see you.
Thanks a lot. So I guess as a quick introduction, as I mentioned, Arden Street Labs, we're focused on the delivery of Azure native solutions, working with a number of clients across a handful of sectors. One of the key sectors for us is healthcare. And in our journey into the healthcare sector, started with Austin Health. It's a publicized case study that's been distributed over the last few weeks around what we've been doing there. But I think it's worth sort of talking about our approach and some of the specifics in terms of the solutions we've been delivering. So our journey with Austin Health first started with us assisting them in their first steps into Azure, helping define and refine a hospital-wide architecture and capability to help stimulate and drive innovation, both in support of research as well as operational insights. Now, within a few weeks, the COVID-19 situation started to become a stark reality. And we quickly shifted gears from the design and establishment of this innovation capability on Azure through to applying that for the delivery of a number of COVID-related solutions, helping the hospital basically digitize a lot of the capabilities and a lot of the care, monitoring, and support required by the hospital in support of their patients. But our approach started off with immediately embedding with the team, right? So we took a step back from technology. We took a step back from solutions and AI and IoT. We said, well, what are the immediate concerns? What are the immediate problems? What are the immediate areas that we can focus on where we can have a real impact on the hospital's ability to respond, whilst at the same time understanding that these things had to be delivered quickly. So for us, it was a balance of what can we build and what can we deliver literally in days. How do we focus on patient support, operational scale, and of course security, especially when using the cloud and having a number of different patient-facing portals and applications. So within our embedding within the hospital, some of the key areas or focus groups that we started looking at was first off the general public. So when we first started working in this area in early March, the hospital was under strain in terms of the number of patients presenting to ED in the broader hospital with possible symptoms, but really looking to be tested. There was a significant anxiety within the community around coronavirus or COVID-19, and it was putting a strain on the hospital. So the first solution we delivered was really focused around the general public. And I'll get to the solutions next. We then said, okay, now that we've managed or helping sort of the hospital defer and manage this public demand, how can we help the infectious disease team and the broader hospital review and scale across the assessment of patients? Immediately, every patient, and this is a bit of a exaggeration here, but it almost seemed as though every patient had a sniffle, had a cough, and immediately there was a fear of them having COVID-19. So how can we help prioritize the ID physicians through a rapid assessment and a score through a digital tool that was readily accessible within the hospital? We then started to take a look at telemedicine and outpatients and visitors to the hospital. So how can we how can we help the hospital move and manage patients who are normally coming into clinics? How can we help navigate that exchange, moving them to telemedicine? How can we then equally, for the patients that have to come in or for visitors into the hospital, how can we evaluate their risk of COVID? How can we ensure that the hospital is a safe environment, both for patients and staff and visitors and everybody? And then finally, for those individuals who were tested and either positive or negative, how can we help them recover at home? So the hospital has a limited number of beds, a limited capability in terms of demand for inpatients or supply for inpatients. So how can we help the hospital and patients feel more comfortable recovering at home? How can we help connect them, help them feel supported, but also connect the COVID clinical teams with those remote patients to help drive follow-up telemedicine, follow-up care, and so on and so forth. So we looked at this holistic sort of journey, patient journey, and did so in a couple of days, right? So we're talking about what normally you'd think about over a few months, consolidated down to hours and days, and then started to rapidly build solutions and MVPs for the hospital. Now, I do want to sort of take a step back and just say that the development and this approach was truly collaborative. We sit with the doctors and physicians and staff within the hospital as if we're one of them. We're constantly drawing upon and supported by Microsoft both globally and locally in this response, and it's been a truly collaborative and team effort. No egos, no nothing. It's really focused on how do we help the hospital support these outcomes. So in terms of the novel digital solutions that were built, there was about a dozen in total delivered, and we're continuing to build and sort of transition them from a COVID response to then operational scale across the broader sort of services that the hospital provides. But the four main areas of the solutions that we delivered was first COVID screen. So going back to public screening and routing. So this is one of the first COVID assessment tools that was released globally, and certainly here in Australia, that provides patients the public the ability to understand their risk as it relates to COVID based on symptoms and other epidemiological criteria, and then routes them to the nearest screening clinic for those that are registered within the platform. And so that leverages a lot of both UX design, feedback and input from physicians, as well as a lot of the Azure capabilities such as maps and cognitive services. The next solution, sort of going back to that life cycle, was then looking at assessments. And this is where COVID Estimate and COVID Match 65 and other clinical tools that we've delivered are being used within the clinical environment for quick assessment and scoring of the patient's risk. What symptoms do they have? How are they presenting? Now, the scoring of this, just to be fully straightforward, is entirely determined and dictated by the physicians at the hospital, by the head of the COVID unit, and that's really ensuring that we're able to digitize the protocol for COVID response and assessment, but through a tool that's then accessible within the hospital across a number of different wards and such. The third area around telemedicine and risk management, again, this is that digital portal of using some of the latest Azure capabilities in terms of being able to assess risk, interact with patients in a digital manner, and help either move them to telemedicine and understand their experiences, or help the hospital manage risk themselves, whether it be for patients or visitors, and really how to get ahead of that, not only now, not only the last 6 weeks, but with a viewpoint of what might this look like over the next 12, 18, 24 months, however however long COVID-19 will be an issue or risk. And then the last area that's gotten a lot of, it's really quite interesting, is called COVID Care. So COVID Care is the application or solution that we developed for remote patient monitoring. It combines a number of capabilities, from the reporting of the self-reporting of symptoms by patients who are home, all the way through to being able to analyze audio recordings of people counting to 30, looking for breaths and coughs and pace of speaking to help assess, and then return those results back to the clinical team, help assess that patient's respiratory sort of position at that time. The other thing that it started to move into, and this is really quite new, is then also connecting for patients that are of respiratory concern, being able to then connect in oximeters or other home respiratory equipment. Again, providing the COVID clinical teams not only the qualitative results of patient self-symptom reporting, but also the quantitative viewpoints around how the patients are performing, what are their vitals, what are their statistics, and then ultimately, from a COVID response and care perspective, these physicians then have a prioritized list of all the patients that are remote, who's reporting which symptoms, which ones are potentially severe, and what does that look like from a remote patient support perspective, and equally, what are their options? Should they come back into the hospital? Should they make an appointment with their GP? Are they fine? And it's just a natural phase of the disease as it progresses. So we're looking at, we've built all these solutions, and now we're looking and working with the teams around how do we scale these to other parts of the hospital? How do we start to support broader operations and patient monitoring and care within the hospital? And how do we do so in this new world, helping manage COVID risk and respond to patients? So, conscious of time, and so this is just a broad overview in terms of what we've been delivering. I figured what might be interesting is then some of the numbers that we've been seeing. Now, I'll preface this with, here in Australia, we've seen we've been very lucky and fortunate in our response, and so our numbers and caseloads are significantly less than some of the other countries and cities around the world. But that being said, these are some of the numbers that we've seen. So COVID Screen, there's been over 10,000 patients that have used this assessment tool and have been routed or advised as the risk and recommended next best steps. Overall, I think it's been viewed by over 50,000 visitors to the site. So we're seeing a lot of traction, a lot of action and demand. In terms of assessments, there's been over 5,000 assessments that have been run, again, within the hospital for scoring and understanding risk of patients for having COVID. For telemedicine and risk management, this is still quite new, but already we've seen in the last month or so over 6,000 patients that have been engaged in this particular tool set, which is now starting to scale across the hospital. And then equally within COVID Care, this is really quite interesting. Over 32,000 observations have been reported, or patients have reported observations over the last 2 months, and just over 900 have been marked as severe. So those severe cases are the ones that have then been escalated to the COVID Care specialist team for them to then follow up either via phone or other mechanisms to help support that patient as they're recovering at home. So there's a number of things that we've been doing around connecting devices, using AI, but really focused on the business outcomes and patient care, operational scale, and most importantly, security in the development and deployment of these solutions over the last 2 months. So hopefully that provides a little bit of insights in terms of what we're doing, kind of what we're seeing, where we're seeing the local demand for healthcare and AI and IoT sort of run. And of course, if there's any questions, feel free to ask them within this this webinar.
Awesome, cool. So, okay, guys. So, Jeff, we will probably come back to some questions as well that you might have from the audience a little later, just in the sake of time. We have noticed, obviously, that this is our first, by the way, online webinar. So I have realized that it's not going live to everyone on my LinkedIn. It's just to those who've registered for the event. And I think some people are having some difficulty getting onto the event. So those that will probably be watching this later and not live, I do apologize on that. We'll make sure we reshare this video so all of you can see. Okay, cool. So for our next speaker we have this evening is Jason Waller from Intelicare. So thank you, Jeff, so much for your presentation. I'll be doing an introduction and questions later from the audience. Please drop your comments down below if you want to know a little bit more about all the awesome work that Jeff has been doing. Okay, thank you so much, Jeff. I'll reconnect now to Jason. Good to see you, buddy. Awesome. So Jason, how are you? Good. For some reason,
back again.
Your mic is on. Awesome. Good to see you. Sorry about that. So some people are having some difficulty log in. So how are you, Jace? Tell me and tell the audience a little bit more about what it is that you're doing over there at Intelicare and a bit more about your role.
Sure. So, well, we just actually listed on the stock exchange. We just raised $5.5 million at 20 cents, and it's gone to 2.5 times its listing price. So that demonstrates there's definitely interest in this sector. But Intelicare, basically, we turn any home into a smart home, and we install a range of sensors which upload to an IoT platform, which is our secret sauce. Run that data through an AI engine, learn what's normal behaviour using that AI, and send alerts out to family or caregivers when something's out of the ordinary. So we help people with disability to live independently safely, or the elderly to age in place and avoid the costs of aged care.
Amazing. Fantastic. All right. Well, I look forward to your presentation. I'm going to let you take the stage. And if you have any questions for Jason, please don't hesitate to drop them down in the comment. We'll see if he can answer some a little later at the end of the presentation. Thanks so much, Jace. I'm going to let you take over here, buddy. Cheers.
Sure. So as I said, with Intelecare, we're solving a problem in aged care using our IoT platform and AI to learn normal behaviour and help people stay safe in their own home. So the reason for this is there is a significant ageing population in Australia and worldwide for that matter. And we can think of it in terms of Australian expenditure as about a $20 billion industry, 85% of which is government funded. Now, part of that funding goes to residential aged care, which is what I think of as nursing homes, but there is a much larger number of people, about 5 times as many people, receive home care packages. And this is where they get assessed by a government assessor, and they're given a package to modify their home or improve it in some way so they can live in their own home safely. The issue is that the aged care industry is in crisis, and the problem here is with that ageing population, there's not a large enough structural tax base there to support it. So all that government funding is getting stressed, and we see that coming out in 2 forms. Firstly, over 51% of those aged care nursing homes are going out of business because they're unprofitable. And the costs of home care delivery are increasing and their revenue is decreasing. So in Australia, we actually had a Royal Commission to solve for that. But the problem was, with that structural issue in place, even with the Royal Commission, our Prime Minister threw $500 million at the problem initially. And that bought about 10,000 additional home care packages. But there's 120,000 people on the waiting list. 16,000 people die waiting for a home care package. So there's not enough government funding, and there will continue to be stress on that funding in the future. So as a result of that, people want to stay in their own home, which is their first preference anyway. And when they do so, they turn to technology. And the only technology available is pendants, which is sort of a duress device that someone wears around their neck and they can press it and they've had a fall and it's an instant. The problem is they don't work. In 8% of falls, people didn't use it, didn't press it, either because it wasn't charged or that it was charged but not on them, or even in 30% of falls, it was charged and on them and they didn't press it anyway because they didn't want to be a burden. So we think there's a better question to answer, which is not has mum or dad had a fall, but are they likely to have a fall, and is that changing over time? And this is where our AI comes into the picture. So we install a range of passive sensors in the home. It's not cameras, and that gets over the major privacy issue that people have and the concerns they have. They're simply off-the-shelf movement, door, and power sensors that we install in key rooms, on front doors, exit doors, fridge, pantry, and power sensors on a kettle or microwave. They're all commercial off the shelf because our platform is an open architecture IoT platform, meaning we've geared it up so that we can strap on board the best and brightest sensors as they merge onto the market. So once those sensors load the data up, the house becomes a smart home and it starts to send out messages. Importantly, it'll send out a message every day that everything's okay in the house, or if something's out of the ordinary, like having arisen each day, you'll get a notification, both a push notification to your phone, as well as for critical messages, a text message. So in addition to those devices that are the standard kit, we've also been able to integrate other devices like wearables, watches, Amazon Alexa, and those kinds of things, which is where we see the future as wearable and remote monitoring technology increases in the future. Importantly, in the COVID environment, it could be part of a telehealth package, as we saw previously. So if you think of a hands-off approach where someone who is symptomatic becomes assessed via telehealth, it's no good just allowing them to sit in their home isolated and no one monitoring them. You don't want to have carers going around at that stage because they become a transmission pathway. So coupled with telehealth, we can reduce those transmission pathways and keep people safer. The other sort of things we're looking at using the AI are things like their presence in the home. So are they becoming socially isolated, which is pretty important for the elderly, that they're not socially isolated. What's their meal activity like? Are they looking after themselves in terms of preparing and eating meals regularly? A really interesting one is the movement activity in general. So we've seen one of our customer who appeared normal to their carer and their daughter. Once we installed Intelecare in the home, we saw she was getting up and down over 40 times during the day, which was a sign of dementia. She was only sleeping for 2 to 3 hours each night in continuous lots. When we've had people who, for instance, have increased bathroom usage, if that's in the short term, that can point to a urinary tract infection, and a UTI can lead to delirium, which is one of the top 3 causes of falls. Similarly, if their bathroom usage is tracking to increase over a longer period, that could be a sign of diabetes. In terms of the architecture itself, we're hosted on Microsoft Azure. We did a bit of a shootout initially between Microsoft and AWS, and we've found Microsoft to be a fantastic partner. I won't go into deep detail in terms of the architecture, but across all of this, you can see that there is a strong emphasis on security, as there are for all the presenters tonight, because it's highly critical. But importantly, our architecture allows us to scale both in terms of the number of users we have on board and also in terms of the number of sensors we can integrate. And we also, as a result of that, we were selected by Microsoft to be part of their scale-up program. So it's a great program for any budding entrepreneurs out there. We get a significant number of Azure credits, and importantly, we've become recently co-sell ready, which means that Microsoft, their sales team, are incentivized to sell our product into the marketplace. So we then load that data and present it in 2 forms. The B2B product is on the left, Intelicare Pro. This is where we target home care providers, service providers who are looking after a large client base, and it triages those to the top that need the most care. So, for instance, if someone's all green, their parameters are all green, they may not need to be visited as regularly, and so therefore home care providers can become more productive. But more importantly, when they go orange or red, one of their indicators goes orange or red, they can modify their care plan and the visits. So that instead of just, say, sending around someone to do a welfare check, they can send around an OT to improve their mobility, or a handyman to install additional movement-activated lighting and prevent a fall. The product on the right is the simple version for our B2C customers. There's over 5 million people in Australia who don't receive some kind of government support and are over 65, and the number is increasing. Those customers, the sons, daughters, purchase to look after mum or dad, but also carers, individual carers, whose organisations hold Intelicare Pro, can use it to examine what's the condition of their client before they go in and knock on the door. So the value propositions I've already talked about significantly. For the individual user, it allows them to live independently. They don't have to sell their home to fund their aged care. For those who are residential care providers and home care providers, they can increase productivity. They decrease their risk, so they don't have, for instance, one of their clients having a fall and being on the ground for days on end, which recently, unfortunately, happened in Australia a couple of weeks ago, where a poor woman was on the ground for 4 days before her carers found her. And they also significantly are able to increase their productivity by, instead of, say, looking after 50 patients or residents per carer, they can look after, say, up to 100. Insurers is really interesting because they can use it to decrease their underwriting risk. And particularly in Australia, with the way insurance is regulated, they're incentivised to get more people over 65 into their client base. And for government, it's about reducing hospitalisation. So we, for instance, had one of our customers who had a mobility issue because of circulation issues. He had to do checks every 6 hours and do exercises. He wasn't doing that, and so when we installed Intelicare in the home, his carer could check that he was doing it, and therefore he got better and wasn't re-hospitalised. So we're really out of the R&D phase into our execution phase. Although the government, we were started with government funding in 2017, we've since had a number of ongoing pilots and trials, including with government departments like the WA Department of Communities, with whom we recently completed a trial for a radar sensor. So this gets strapped onto the ceiling, can check people's movement, their respirations, heart rate, those kinds of things, and demonstrates the flexibility of our IoT platform. In the future, what we're going to do is we're going to remove the hub, which is the weak link in the whole system, also the most expensive part of the system, and transform all those capabilities in terms of messaging into the home and interaction with the resident and the client onto a tablet. Rolling out over East, and then finally we're going to have our off-the-shelf product. So this is the product where you go into Bunnings, JB Hi-Fi, Harvey Norman, large pharmacy chains, and be able to buy it off the shelf alongside other smart home technology. So we certainly see a very strong tailwind here. This ageing population isn't going away. We think we can't continue to persist with the current business model, which is individual carers having to deliver all this service. It is going towards a self-service DIY aged care model. Someone's going to occupy this space, and we think IoT is the way to go in terms of remote monitoring, but it's got to be coupled with AI because then we can start to become predictive and get ahead of the curve rather than just responding to events when they happen. So that's us. Thank you very much, Jess, for this opportunity to present. Someone's asked if they want to receive a copy as well of this presentation. If you go to our website and our investor page, you'll find a copy of this there. I'll hand back to you now, Jess. And I think you might be on mute.
Good, awesome. Thank you for that. I guess it's really interesting to hear. I love to hear just the impact that it actually has on the everyday health of people. And I mean, when I saw that statistic that it's 10% of the US population, the health outcomes is due to error, misdiagnosis and these kinds of things, that really shocks me. So I'm really interested to see where you guys go and some of the problems that you guys are going to solve in this space. Coming up next, we have our next speaker, and thank you so much, Jason. And Jeff was incredible as well. So I'm really looking forward. Next, we have Michael McGrath from Semantics, talking in and around some of the projects that he's working on. So, Jason, thanks so much for that presentation. If anyone has comments for and questions for Jason or for Jeff, you can contact them, on LinkedIn. You can hit them up on the message, or you can drop comments down below. So please make sure that you do that. Write it down, and we'll have some questions from the audience later. Maybe they'll jump into the comment box as well. So thanks so much there, Jason, and we'll thank you so much. I'll grab you off the screen and jump on.
Thanks for the great comments.
Yeah. Oh. Thanks, buddy. All right. Awesome. Good to have you. So next we have, for the next talk, we'll be having Michael McGrath. He's from Semantics. Michael's a really interesting guy. He's been working in this space for quite some time. So I'm quite excited to hear some of the talks and presentations that he has. So I'll bring you up on screen there, Mike, if you're ready. How are you, Mike?
I'm well, thank you, Jess. Appreciate it very much. And thanks to you and Microsoft for arranging the event. It's great. Look, I think probably for me, Semantics sort of started originally to look at applying emerging tech and AI, sensor, big data, location tracking, very relevant to the health space, very relevant to where we're moving with new sensor technologies. Look, we were very much looking at fusing sensors together, integrated health and sensor information systems, and looking how that fitted with autonomous platforms and 3D sensing, smart sensors. So given I was contacted a couple of days ago, this is a pretty wordy presentation. I'll make it available either to the site or my site or via you. But it's kind of, as you said, a focus on how you go about real-world IoT sensor development from a startup perspective, because that's what we were doing when we started this a few years ago. And it's a long, evolving process, but I'll run through that. Would you like me to start?
Yeah, amazing. Awesome. I'm really excited. I'm going to jump off screen. If you want to share your screen down here, I can bring that up for you. All right. So take it away, Mike.
Fantastic. I'm doing that as we speak. Wonderful. Okay. Can you see that, Jess? Or is that flickering badly? Look, there's a reasonable amount of information available here on this screen, and it's an introduction. What we really were looking at initially was aged care, and we think it's a sector in need of better solutions. From us, worldwide, the number of people over 65 will double in the next 20 years to about 30% of the population. Falls impact 1 in 3 people in pretty much every country, and that increases as you get older, 1 in 2 over 75. And it kills more people in car accidents in Australia. It's amazing. 2/3 of ambulance call-outs for falls. When you look at it worldwide, it's about 1% of world GDP is actually involved in treating people who fall in an elderly context. So we think there's a better solution required there. So let's see if this works. So the issue we wanted to address, current fall detection technology, not very effective. As I said, 1 in 3, 80% of people who fall don't trigger their alert pendants. If you're on the ground more than an hour, you're likely to find yourself in permanent care or potentially dying within 12 months. The stats are horrible. And nursing staff, when we questioned them around what the issues they had in a hospital or residential aged care context was, they had trouble with false alarming by pressure mats and IR barriers. It's just the way people interact with them. So we're looking for a more stable model. And then we looked at the outcomes, said huge costs, and we said, what about quality? What about rural elderly? So we said, look, the needs for a better falls detection model. So our approach was to build, much like many people, an intelligent IoT monitoring system. And we prototyped a number of aspects and built out and trialed that with help from Melbourne University's HABIT team, working with Deakin, working with state government to get grants and funding, and provided a number of trials with a group called Tea Tree, or an aged care facility. Now, from a startup perspective, what were our goals? We wanted to build an ambient intelligence approach using distributed intelligence, IoT technologies, perceptual computing, And that cognitive computing aspect, tying both sensing and effector and interactions with the environment. And we wanted to be able to pick up falls, we wanted to be able to pick up bed exits, and we wanted to do behaviour monitoring in fine-grained detail. The previous speaker was talking about perhaps more coarser-grained monitoring of people's day-to-day activities, but we also wanted to add in a finer-grained aspect. Now, what did that mean for us? Well, we had a vision model, but we were doing something a little bit different. We wanted to detect falls and monitor behaviours, but we wanted to preserve privacy. How do you do that with a 3D depth sensing camera model? Well, Edge AI allowed us to process on the sensor. So we could just send text alerts and summaries outside, not sending actual information. So it wasn't a camera, it was a sensor would just let you know there was a difference or an activity or an event of concern. And that could be directed to the family, it could be directed to the hospital staff, it could potentially be directed from a telehealth perspective. And we wanted to capture population big data. And the critical part behind that is because there are diagnostic indicators you'll get long term. And that lets you do earlier intervention. So as an example, Alzheimer's patients show gait, tremor, and meandering walking patterns 6 to 12 months before diagnosis. If you can detect it, you can start to treat with medication. You can get 60% of sufferers having a delayed 2 to 4 year evolution of their symptoms to the point that it becomes much more significant to them. And that's critical. The other thing from an IoT sensor development, and this is for the startups in the audience, don't forget this. Who's your actual client? You know, what are their needs? Who'll use it? What are the capabilities? And what's the accuracy, the false positive negatives? So when we looked at our segments we were targeting, aged care or aged clients, their family, nursing staff, and residential aged care and hospital facilities, you know, you have to understand that customer segment, their needs, the value chain, the workloads. And critically, and this is really key, who's going to pay for it? Because the person who's fallen in a hospital environment isn't the person paying. It's the facility. And the facility will have different goals. So you really need to know those customer needs just so you understand what's critical from the sales perspective and therefore what you need to build. So the other thing, certification. Is it a TGA in Australia or an FDA certification? You know, is software in or as a device in terms of what you have to meet? Is it going to be used for clinical diagnostics? Because diagnostics put a greater burden on you in terms of the certification process. And you integrate mobile apps because mobile apps are also now effectively part of that clinical tool. And the other big one we found was, can your clients actually use the device in the target environment? So a hospital needs a clinical framework to roll out new technology. And so we work with Melbourne University to identify relevant clinical frameworks to allow you to start to bring those sensors into both residential aged care and hospital environments. So the other area that you really need to consider very closely is bias, both from an ethical and an AI perspective. If you're building AI-based pipelines, you're building training data, you're working with sensors, you need to understand what biases are there. So for us, we were building pose tracking capabilities, body shape, posture, color, hairstyle, or in my case, lack of it. Change as we get older, you have to be able to handle those changes and not have inappropriate alerting as a result. Detection on a floor with commercial platforms was difficult. Again, they're often based on a younger player of a game as opposed to an elderly person. So we needed to build up IP around it. And again, AI needs data. And if you can't get enough data, you need to be able to create it. So we use synthetic data generation to create over 200,000 synthetic body images for our AI training, you know, different hairstyle, skin tones, body shapes and poses, all as part of a training regimen for that. We worked with Deakin University around that. But if you look at the current systems, you can use CycleGAN type AI pipelines to generate and synthesize new training. You need to look at that. Now, one of the other things you really need to consider is the sensor components. So you need to be able to handle obsolescence and change of product. Don't depend on a single vendor, and make sure that for either hardware or software, but also make sure that you've got alternate sensors and alternate libraries you can use or build. So as an example, we were working with PrimeSense at the time. who developed the original Connect One. They were acquired by Apple. We got a drop of a buggy version of a piece of unique software from them, a Linux version of their software, and then they were purchased and disappeared off the market a week later. You have to be really careful. You have second sources in the world, and that your sensors will change over time. One of the other areas around IoT is the actual testing is not straightforward, and AI testing is not straightforward. So lab testing has limits. The lab environments are not the real world, and I'll highlight a couple of issues. Wireless networks don't behave the way you expect. When we rolled our trial out to Tea Tree, it was an aged care facility, which we worked through with them. We found the wireless networks didn't interoperate. Intel hardware, Intel software, third-party software, Cisco networks. I think the summary is the best thing about standards. There are many, and they're all open for interpretation. So we had enormous issues in terms of getting reliable connectivity, something we hadn't expected based on our lab testing. First generation components, again, we were working with some early Intel compute sticks prototypes. They had some issues as well. We needed to replace those, and expect to be updating your software in the field because you'll learn and you'll need to redeploy regularly. Don't take that real world testing too lightly as well. I mentioned what a client does in their own personal room can make a difference. And I make the comment, budget plasma TVs generate more electromagnetic interference than pretty much anything I've ever seen. And we had lots of problems which we tracked back to sensors being too close to a noise source. Networks, you need to work with the administrators, you need to do things, interoperability, guaranteeing you can have changes made when you need them. Expect the worst, don't be disappointed. And then lifelike simulations of events and activities. So look, the key thing you need to consider is that while it's easy to capture and repeat a behavior, it's not necessarily real world. For us, events like a fall really were a hard activity because when you hit the ground, even when you detune the systems, you were hitting with a significant impact. We realized after a couple of hundred tests that we weren't actually physically going to be able to tolerate this, even at a tenth the fall rate that we were expecting. So again, automated testing is critical. Make sure you can do that repeatedly. You'll need it for your AI algorithms as well. Make sure that you can test and understand changes in behavior as you refine your systems, and include captured real world as well as simulated data, because you always see odd things in a real world environment. Ambient lighting conditions are different. RF is different. Now, the other thing highlighting at the bottom, AI predictions need special attention. Bias, drift, retraining. You need to be able to do these and redeploy them regularly, but also ensure your systems still work the way they did and with the accuracy from the previous day. So look, it's a really important consideration. Now, one of the other things which we found was quite interesting was ethics, data privacy, and security. So again, from a patient perspective, what data are you collecting? You need to be able to communicate that to them very clearly, to the patients, to the staff, to the university. And that ties into another thing we found, trial ethical approval. So medical trials require ethics approvals. University ethics approvals take a long time. And you never want to be dependent from a project management perspective on that happening as quickly as you thought. The other thing we found was device security considerations, and this is critical now. We started this a few years ago. Hardware and software encryption on IoT devices has moved ahead leaps and bounds. You need to be able to securely lock down access to devices, and you need to have certificates. IoT devices in the real world at the present, 5,200 attacks monthly worldwide on any device, and it's looking like a 300% increase every year. You need to lock this down. Now, an example was a casino with a fish tank which was hacked, which eventually gave hackers access to their entire behind-the-scenes casino network, and then access to their records. You can't have that. Now, I suggest our Microsoft friends can help you look at Sphere IoT as a hardware approach, which is a fantastic model. Device management, again, has moved ahead leaps and bounds since we started doing that. You need to have custom encrypted bootstrap loaders and device management. That's what we did, but you've got much better technology to use now. So lever the experience and the skills and the platforms from groups like Microsoft. And then collect the data security and encryption. You must meet international storage and access requirements and regulations. It's critical because if your system is not trusted by people, they won't use it. Now, I think from a trends perspective, these are some of the key things I think are relevant. Ethical AI. It takes really significant effort to make AI systems independent of biases and to allow them to be retrained and deployed regularly. So you've got to take that up as an area that's emerging at the moment. Ambient intelligence, again, having those edge AI sensors which understand people, activities, and being able to have them respond is critical. On a similar note, situational awareness, we're integrating and delivering multiple IoT devices in our households. You get better results as you build up more information. So make sure that you're designing with a concept of information which is targeted at what you're doing in the environment and having the systems try and predict, i.e., if I'm an elderly person, it turns the lights on for me. If I fall, someone's alerted automatically. That's a model that needs to be looked at. Digital twins, it's a buzzword at the moment, but it's very relevant. It's not just buildings, it's people, it's objects, it's processes. Groups like Siemens have built a fantastic model of a human heart, and they use that for surgery and diagnostic preparation. It's critical. These things are the areas which are moving forward. Groups like Microsoft are building that into their platforms now. And again, it's multiple sensor data fusion. I highlighted that. Again, to really have systems reliably work in the real world, you need multiple information sources. So if information isn't coming from one sensor, you can do something intelligent based on 2 or 3 other sensors. And then new location tracking technologies, millimeter wave radar, as I mentioned, LiDAR systems, they're all coming down in price. They all allow AI-based IoT sensors to understand more about what's happening in the environment and to react more relevantly. And again, we're down to centimeter accuracy from GPS with real-time kinematics, RTLS and RFID positioning, like with groups like Decawave with their technology. And then in the new iPhone and Bluetooth positioning libraries, which are available, give you 10 centimeter to 2 centimeter accuracies. It's amazing. So look, that sort of gives you a bit of a flavour about where we got to. And we started off with a view of the world which was the right information where you need it as a medical practitioner and to support patients to give them better care, from sensors to integration of movement and behaviour detection through to mobile delivery and the integration of patient records and staff profiles so you can get the right person to the patient with the right skills at the right time. Look, that sort of covers me, Jess. Hopefully that helps. Sorry, Steph, I appear to be not. Can you hear me?
Hey guys, sorry about that. My mic was muted there. Apologies. Yeah, really awesome presentation. Some cool facts in there, which I love to see. For me, technology is one of those spaces where innovation's always at the forefront. It's interesting because a lot of things that you're all doing and that a lot of the people who are tuning in, this is the start, right? Like in 10, 20 years' time, it's going to be commonplace. That's normal. But right now we're at the beginning of IoT. And for all of you who are out there who are running your own little projects and stuff, I think it's just like so important for you to remember that you can develop something really new that hasn't been done, and that, even big companies, for example, we've got some very big companies here tonight, we've got some of the smaller brands, and yet they're still almost on a level playing field. So I find that really cool and really, really interesting. So thank you so much there, Mike. All right, we're going to move to the next speaker. If you want to chat with Mike later, he'll be at the end of the event there for Q&A. You can also drop him a message on LinkedIn. You can drop a note down in the comments and follow up on the brand and hit up the website if you needed to talk with him. So I thank you so, so much, Mike. You enjoy the rest of your night, and I'll tune in you back a little later. Okay?
Thank you, Jess. Have a great night.
Awesome. You too. Next, we have our one of our final speakers. So our final speaker, and then we will have a small presentation from Microsoft at the end. So our final speaker is Simon from SAP. He is a really, really interesting, cool guy that's quite innovative. He's got a lot of wonderful ideas. So I will do a quick intro and he'll give his presentation. Hey, Simon, how's it going? We've got you on mute, I think, or it takes a moment for the volume to come on. Cannot hear you yet, but that's okay. We will figure this out. Okay. Is
How
it
about that?
working yet?
Is that working now?
Gotcha.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Thank
I think
you.
there must be a lag on that. Awesome, awesome. How are you?
Oh, going very well. We've had some fantastic speakers. Very interesting project.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, Simon, I'm going to leave the stage there for you. You take over and I'll tune in when you're finished. See you, buddy.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Now, just to see who I'm speaking to in the audience, can I get if you're from an aged or healthcare provider, say provider in the chat. If you're from a business or consulting organization, say business. And if you are a developer or someone technical, say tech. Just so I can see who I'm speaking to tonight. We might have a shy audience at the moment. So my name is Simon Grace. I look after health and aged care for SAP across Australia and New Zealand, and I'm also one of the founders of Digital Aged Care. We are a social venture funded by SAP to help seniors live at home for longer using technology. Thank you very much. We've got business and tech, lots and lots of people. Fantastic. All right, that helps me really understand the message and the story. So over the last number of years, before Digital Aged Care, I worked in the aged care space. And I kept on seeing the same issues over and over again. And please let me know if you can, I think you can see my screen. And the same issues that you've heard tonight. We have an environment where we have a significantly growing aging population. And there are a lot of issues that come from that, right? From the people in the chat, please say me if you have an elderly person in your family, a parent or a grandparent that has a chronic illness or is somewhere far away from your home that you would love to have visibility over to know if they're okay. Say me in the chat if that's the case. Because for certain, for myself and my team at SAP, this was exactly the problem. We have a situation where a quarter of people that have a fracture will die in 6 months. We have a situation where our aged care sector does not have the amount of funding that they need to make sure that our seniors, our older Australians, and also everywhere else across the globe has the right care that they need. We have a rising cost of healthcare, and it's a situation that isn't going to stop today. It's going to keep on growing. So now we all want to have some kind of visibility, and I think we've had some really interesting presentations today from Jason, from Mike, from Jeff, and I think this is an issue that we're all trying to solve, and I think in very similar ways. At SAP, we definitely believe in bringing everything together. So we are a team of 25 volunteers and also just people part of the team in Digital Aged Care that have built a system to allow sensors, voice experiences, as well as interactions from seniors and family and care providers all to come together in one place, apply machine learning on it to make it easier for carers to do what they need to do, and then also give visibility to the family of any critical condition. We've been running pilots in India, Australia, and Japan, and there have been a lot of learnings over the last period. As we have heard in the last couple of presentations, technology isn't always easy in senior care, in aged care, isn't it? It can be quite a complex thing to roll out into homes or residential aged care facilities or into retirement villages due to challenges, and older people aren't always as comfortable with technology. We have an issue of data privacy. As discussed in previous presentations, there's an issue in liability. So we've really tried to come together by working with universities, other technology providers, as well as the aged care providers themselves, to build something where we can overcome a lot of these challenges together. And so today, talking to you all, this is a journey, and we'd love to invite anyone that's interested, of course, to work with us. So I want to get into a little bit about why, as this is an event around machine learning and IoT, I really want to share a little bit about why we see machine learning and IoT as critical to providing value to the aged care system and to our seniors. So machine learning automates things, right? It's a way to understand lots of data coming from different sources and apply intelligence on it to do something. Now, there are lots of scenarios we can talk about. I'm going to talk about two at the moment. So one that we're working on in aged care at the moment is the concept of image processing in wound management. Now, in aged care, you might have 10 clients, 100, 1,000, 10,000. And each one of these clients might be having falls, or they might be having health issues, or they might have a skin tear, a pressure wound, or a rash, many types of things. We found that in certain care providers, they might have one clinically trained person, such as a registered nurse, for 300 or more people. Now, just imagine that. You are an aged care provider and you're taking care of hundreds or thousands of people, and you yourself alone are there to triage, to find out what the illness is, what the condition is, and then provide the right advice to make sure that person can recover, can get the right care, and then go back onto their lives. This is an immensely difficult task, really an immensely difficult task. So by having photos, by allowing elderly people and their family or their carers to be able to take a photo of their wound and then submit it to the aged care provider, and it already being triaged to show the severity, to show where the issue is, and also to define what it is. Is it a pressure sore? Is it a rash? Is it a tear? Something to actually help give this information to the right person. Then that's a lot of time saving. We found that in many cases, people were driving every single day to check up on an individual just to see, has a wound improved or not, and then to give the right advice. Not necessarily to change the dressing or change the to manage the wound, but just to see the difference between yesterday and today. And it was absolutely amazing to find, when we first started this, we were working with a 95-year-old gentleman with mild dementia, and he was still able to use his really big tablet to take a photo of his wound and send it across each day. And this really showed us that, you know, we were incorrect in thinking that seniors couldn't use advanced technology like touchscreen photos, but proof was in the pudding, and he worked out absolutely fine. The other area is also in when you bring things together. So we've heard a lot about sensors, and I absolutely agree, Jeff, Mike. Pendants don't do anything. Pendants are dangerous because they give a false sense of security, and they most certainly don't always detect a fall. And we found if you have multiple devices, such as a wearable for when you go outside, as well as radar sensors inside, and of course there are many other areas exploring LiDAR and motion sensors and other things. We found radar very, very positive, where you have a sensor that has 75 different radar sensors in it that can detect a complex event. So as an example, a radar by itself can detect a fall. If someone is a blob detected by the radar and that blob looks like it falls, that's a very easy algorithm to make. But it can do some really interesting things as well. One thing we've been working with neurologists in Sydney is in the area of Parkinson's dementia. And one of my favorite ones is when a radar sensor can detect a Parkinson's patient walking through a hallway and slowing down. This is quite cool because you can also use other technologies with that, perhaps an Alexa or a Google Home. So we've used a Google Home to say that if someone is walking through a corridor and stops, the Google Home will say something simple like stand up straight and take a big step forward, allowing them to then recollect and take that and not fall. Unfortunately, with Parkinson's, we have something called a distraction zone. When a Parkinson's patient experiences something like going through a doorway or having, a new object coming in view, sometimes they slow down and sometimes they freeze. And these freezes are very dangerous because this is when they have a high likelihood of falling. So by being able to, reawaken them by something as simple as saying a message or playing a Bee Gees song, keeping alive to keep a beat, it can help a Parkinson's patient move across and continue living. So we generally say one device can help you detect something, 2 or more and bring them together can help you prevent something. So the reason why we're very glad to be doing this as part of SAP. SAP runs over 7,900 healthcare providers across the world, and they run on SAP systems. This means that we can very easily work with, so we build on SAP Cloud Platform, which can use Azure services, AWS services. We like Azure because it's very easy to use. But then you can also work with enterprise systems such as SAP to schedule a visit, actually book in a powerful engine so you can get the right person to the job. You can put that into payroll. You can put that into your billing cycle. You can put that into CRM for your email communications. But when you use SAP Cloud Platform and SAP, you can bring it all together. So we found in the projects that we've worked on, it's very easy to then connect it to the rest of the business. When it's operating in silos, we find it can be quite frustrating as there's notifications for carers coming from thousands of systems. So I think one of the last things I want to leave you with is our learnings from seniors. And remember, this is from seniors not just in Australia, but from India, Japan, and all, we operate in 188 countries with SAP. So we are constantly talking to the different markets about how seniors and how families deal with the challenges of aging. But we definitely know that in many cases, we have some wonderful, wonderful older generations before us that are leading a great example. They're very capable even in their older age, but sometimes it means that they don't like to ask for support. Yet they do welcome it when it is offered. A lot of them don't necessarily embrace technology straight away. They don't go out and buy phones, and some of them don't have smartphones even today. But when they're shown the value of it, they are actually very easy to train. It's actually quite easy for them to adopt new technology as long as it's reinforced each week, each day, and there's design that's taken care of for them. And there's a lot of hope. So every year there's a 10% plus more increase in seniors that use smartphones. So this is only going to get more and more prevalent in the market. As we've heard from previous presentations, home care is going to be extremely strong in the future. So with that, thank you very much. And I look forward to speaking with you all very soon.
Amazing. Awesome stuff. Really, really cool. So make sure you do get into the comments, guys. If you've got any questions as well for Simon, reach out to him. I'm sure that he'll be more than happy to get back to you. For those of you who are participating, remember that we do have competitions on with things to win. So pop a question in there for Simon at the end, and you will go into the draw for those competitions. So thanks so much for that, Simon, for your insight. Really appreciate it. Let's catch up at another point as well. Maybe do another presentation on some of these kinds of things. Really interesting. I feel like for all of you, it's too short, really, 15 minutes. We could probably, I'm sure, talk all day about some of these technologies. So really cool stuff. Awesome, Simon. Thank you so much. And I'll bring you back for the Q&A a little later. See you, buddy. All right. We have coming up, I know it's been a bit of a talk. I look forward to sharing this video as well to everyone on LinkedIn. It's been a very interesting learning experience for me on how this platform is working. So many hiccups, but that's okay. We will share this out so that it's more publicly viewable. I wasn't aware it was just closed to our network, but this is good because a lot of you are asking questions. So take the time to get to know each other as well in the comments. Like, post a bit about what you do, the country that you're in, where you're based. I'd love to see that. Drop a comment down which city you're in. I'd love to see that. Next up, we've got a brief presentation from Sim, and then Tim Simmons. From Tim Simmons from Microsoft. He'll be talking about all the awesome stuff, doing a little bit of an education piece, what they're working on there at Microsoft. And just remember to stick around for the Q&A and the prizes, because we'll be announcing the winner after this. So we're just going over time, but we should be finished up relatively soon. There's no rush. I'm sure you all got a coffee in hand anyway. How are we, Tim?
Excellent. Can you hear me? Just audio check.
You're actually the first one, I think, that's just come straight on with the volume.
Fantastic. And he said coffee. Normally about this time we'd be having a beer, right? Beer and some pizza. So thanks very much for all your hard work getting all this together. Now, I realise we're running a little bit behind time, so I'm not going to take too much of your time. I'm here to give you the gift of knowledge. So all those who are on the call, thank you so much for being here. I just want to talk about a number of things that that Microsoft offer for those who may be starting on their IoT journey. Maybe you have some knowledge around other platforms that exist, or maybe you want to go a little bit deeper from what you're currently working with, a Hackster project or something else. So what I thought I'd do is get you guys to take a screenshot of what you see here, and these are some great resources that I think you'll find very valuable. First of all, I'll talk about Microsoft Learn. So this is a platform for learning. There's both technical and strategic learning modules, and it's not just specific to IoT. There is multiple different platforms from different databases that you may want to know, architecture, security. There's a whole range of technologies that you can go and learn yourself, and it's all for free. So definitely worth having a look around there. It's also got gamification. We all love a bit of gamification. So you can level up with the more modules you complete, the more points you get, the more levels you get. And also at the end of these particular models, you also get badges. So you can stick them on LinkedIn and even add them to your CV. The next resource I'll talk about is the IoT Playbook. Now, the Playbook is a really good way if you're looking at the digital disruption within your organization, or you want to take something to your boss and say, hey, there's some IoT devices out there that we think can disrupt this industry. It's something that we want to show to our stakeholders. Go and have a look at the Playbook. It's got a lot of great information around who you need in your team, what resources, developers, infrastructure, security. It really takes you through that journey and how to build an ROI for everybody to get on board with your ideas, and a great place to look, and lots of detail. The next resource is the IoT Show. So this is updated every single week. It's updated with short 10-minute bite-sized videos. This might be on the stream analytics. This might be on device twins, digital twins. There's a whole lot of the different IoT components. Here you can go and just do a quick search. It's also got a lot of relevant and new content. So we had the Build conference last week with lots of fantastic and new announcements around IoT. So you can go on there and have a look at what's the latest and greatest. We've even got deep dives on there as well. So if you want to understand a particular technology in a lot more depth, go and have a look. It's a fantastic resource. The IoT Signals report is a way for you to go and understand what's happening in the market. So over 3,000 IT decision makers and CIOs were surveyed to understand what IoT was going to do within their industry, and what impact within their business IoT was having. So whether it was looking at productivity gains, new revenue streams, understanding what that market is around the world, and even within Australia, you know, go and understand what's happening and what that market share is. A fantastic resource and great reading if you can't get to sleep, because it is quite long. I'm pretty excited to announce that the AZ220, which is a Microsoft Specialty IoT Developer Certification, is now live and under general release. This is a fantastic certification. It's really in depth, and it covers IoT really from end to end. So from the devices and the SDKs that you're utilizing for Edge modules, how to debug those modules, stream analytics, how do you deploy ML models out to your infrastructure? Where do I need stream analytics? What type of storage do I need for the data that I'm collecting? Am I looking at Cosmos DB? Am I looking at a structured data storage? Really great, really hands-on. That link there actually has access to about 20 labs, and this will actually talk you through step by step. Even the code is written for you to create simulated devices. So recommend go in there, have a look. The last one I want to talk about, and we all use Bing for our search engine. I know we all do. The link was too hard to paste on here, so I've just said put Pamela Cortez end-to-end webinar series into Bing, and you will find a Microsoft link to 5 separate webinar series that really cover that developer certificate in detail in a way that's presented that you can just listen to and visually understand. So they talk through the different components, from device provisioning, from security, certificate management, and all the considerations and technical infrastructure that you need for an IoT series. That's it for me. I hope that's relevant and interesting to you guys. I can't see your comments at this point, but and I also want to give a big call out and thank you to Jessica Reesby and her team for putting this all together. There's a lot of work that goes on in the background, so thank you all for your efforts there. I'll pass back over to you.
Anytime. Yeah. Look, it's a learning curve for us all regarding the event, but I mean, we've had some awesome speakers. We've had some really, really cool insights. And for a lot of you, I don't think you would get maybe as much as a personal. I know that this for us, right, I wanted it posted way more public because we had so much interest, but I'm still learning the LinkedIn platform. It's obviously not as good as maybe some of the other options. Basically, the selection that we made was not correct, but that's okay because it means we've kind of got a little bit of a personal hub here, which gives me a bit of that feel like we would have had if we had had the event face-to-face like what we normally do, right, Tim?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
And we're still a community.
Yeah.
COVID-19's brought in this new way of working. We're all remote. We're all getting that ISO fix at home, and you know, this is a great platform. So thank you again to you and your team.
Amazing. I'm going to pass it through to my team for the competition draw. So you bear with me, and we'll be with you in a moment on that one. So just bear with me while I transition this.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. It was such an enlightening night. I would like to say a big thank you to Microsoft for sponsoring us, and a great big thank you for our fantastic speakers, Jeff, Michael. Great pleasure. A nice small little community that will be as well recorded. So I will pass it now to Stephanie that will be going about the competition. I'm very excited.
So am I, Anna. I'm super excited to announce the winners of the competition.
Okay, can you tell me a little secret? Who is it?
So the winner of the first prize, Microsoft IoT Dev Kit Mix Chip, is Lee Joe John. Congratulations. We're going to reach out to you on LinkedIn and send you the details how we're going to get the prize to you. And then our second prize, which is a professional resume composed by Reesby, a professional cover letter created by Reesby, and professional career developing job sessions, skill sessions worth up to $750, is Susan Sly. So congratulations, Susan. Congratulations, Lee Joe. We'll definitely be in contact with you guys.
Thank you so much once again for all your lovely, amazing work, for coming. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely night from us, and please stay safe.
Thanks, everyone. Catch up with you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
And